The L&T Infotech IPO opens on Monday, and we have with us to discuss the IPO Mr. A.M. Naik, Group Executive Chairman of L&T Group, and Sanjay Jalona, MD and CEO of L&T Infotech. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on Bloomberg Quint. Mr. Naik, let me begin with a statement from the analyst. The analyst community is saying that L&T Infotech is like any other mid-cap IT company with similar margin profile. How do you counter that argument?
You see, we started a division called Smart World 3 years ago in L&T Group. Okay, so we visualized that there are a lot of opportunities coming in the new age technologies. This year we did in L&T Group the business of 1100 crores of the Smart World. Smart World covers all the aspects of really digital applications, and in the various sectors and in the various areas of opportunities that each sector throws up. There is no other IT company which has 82 business knowledge, or call it domain knowledge, and each one trying to get to become smart in some areas or the other where the customer gets maximum return.
But how does it differentiate L&T Infotech?
That's what I'm saying, that L&T Infotech is the implementation partner within the whole of L&T Group. That exposure no other IT company has. Consequently, L&T Infotech is the one which has the maximum learning opportunities. With that knowledge, they can go in the same domain all over the world and can give the solution.
But is L&T Infotech leveraging that domain knowledge, because it's not getting reflected in the revenue?
It's too early, no?
So when
please
do you
tell me
expect
how many. Please tell me how many IT companies have today, to the extent you are thinking about the knowledge in digital and knowledge in Internet of Things and analytics and big data and all of that. They are all learning right now. And to different companies, digital means different.
True.
Right? So we are actually trying to bring physical and digital together as a group and giving a turnkey solution. Nobody else can do that.
So is there a roadmap for L&T Infotech to bring that, convert that knowledge into revenue, and when do you see that happening?
It has started covering, it has started getting the revenue already.
See, if I may
Sanjay.
add a few data points and add on to what the chairman said. In fiscal 16, we grew on dollar terms at 9.5%. Most of the companies that you look at grown at single digit number as well. The most important thing that you asked is, how do you differentiate? And single most important metric that you look at for differentiation is when you go and buy, and what price point do you buy it. So the equivalent metric in IT industry is revenue productivity per person month. When you look at that, our revenue productivity per person month is actually higher than most of the mid caps, and actually competes with most of the large caps as well. So the customers see value in the promise that we hold for them, which is to solve complex business problems at the convergence of physical and digital with business outcomes.
Sanjay, I agree with you what you're saying, but the point is that you're coming to the street, and the street would look at your numbers very closely. And if you look at the FY16 numbers in dollar terms, you grew at 9.5% as against the industry average of 12.3%. So you were below the industry average in FY16, and that's a concern which the street is saying, that your revenue growth potential is coming down. How do you address that issue?
Actually, it's not the case. So this is where I think people need to understand, and analysts understand this beautifully now, because they have had a discussion.
Analysts are saying the same thing.
So I don't necessarily agree with that, but at least let me try to give you a clear viewpoint on what the numbers are and how this has shaped up. Look, our numbers is 9.5% in dollar terms, close to 14% in constant currency. We have a high sectoral business of oil and gas, which has dropped significantly in the last 2 years based on the oil prices. So even with that, if you took that out, most of the mid cap companies don't have that exposure. If you took that out, we are at the growth of 16 to 17% in dollar terms itself. So you take good and bad. This oil and gas sector has grown very well for us in the last 10 years. There are sectoral challenges that happen from time to time. There is a resilience that is built into the system, and we are seeing growth in oil and gas as well right now. So we are positive about driving the growth.
So which is a sector which will ensure that your growth comes back to that level of 16-17% in the next year? Because if oil and gas is going to remain subdued, you still have the challenge of meeting the industry target, right?
So oil and gas is not remaining subdued. So the important part is from Q3 to Q4, and the analyst community is very well aware of this, have actually seen a growth in oil and gas numbers. And there is a new norm, right, that is available with the oil companies now. They know that oil price is not going to reach $100 anytime soon. So how long can you stop the mission critical capital projects? So they have actually started opening up. In the last 4 months, we actually won a large deal in oil and gas. We have seen both deals that we have won. We have pitched out proactive deals to optimize their spend as well as create new revenue generation opportunities for them. So we are seeing opportunities there. What you got to remember is that we have 250 plus marquee customers who we work with. And while 20 customers account for some 65-68% of our business, we have a great opportunity mining the remaining of the customers to bring value to the shareholders.
Mr. Naik, your ROEs for the company is one of the highest in the industry, and that's primarily because of the 75% dividend payout you've been giving for the last 3 years. Are you confident of maintaining those ROEs?
You mean the dividend payout?
And dividend payout?
Well, I don't think we can talk about it, what we will do in dividend policy in future, right? So far, we were 100% owning this company. Consequently, whether it remains in this pocket or that pocket, it doesn't make any difference. But as we go forward, there will be lot many new shareholders, and they are in retail, maybe running into tens of thousands of shareholder at least. So a board will evolve a dividend policy, which in any case will be as per the L&T group policy, which normally you know, or for that matter, what the industry wants, that policy.
Can you
But the
articulate what is
the fact is that in consolidation profit, the return on equity is not going to change. And now we are only giving consolidated result.
Can you articulate what is the dividend policy for L&T and which may reflect?
It is very well known, it's in public eyes.
So you'll maintain that level of.
I said we can do that, or we can do what are the industry norms. I didn't say anything specifically, whether it will be this or that. And as I mentioned in one of the press conference, dividend payout is the smallest part of return to the shareholder.
True.
When somebody who buys the share, 1 rupee share at 800, let's say for the moment, even if you give 75%, you are giving 75% on 1 rupee, right? Which become fraction on 700.
That's a 4 to 5% yield which will come.
It will be 2 to 3%, I can tell you. And if you work very productively with a adaptation of new technologies fast enough, can be, though middle size, create a differential, among the IT companies group, and the share price goes up only by 10 rupees, right? I get better yield.
I wanted to check with you on the EBITDA margin front. You have been maintaining an EBITDA margin of 18 to 20% range. One of the concerns is that it's very typical of mid-cap IT companies, and if you compare it with the top 5 IT companies, their EBITDA margins is between 21 to 23%. Are we going to see in the future steps taken by L&T Infotech to ensure that you climb that 20% barrier?
We have levers on utilization. Our utilization including trainees is around 73.8. It can go up to 78 if not higher. Most of the large IT companies are running upwards of 80%. We don't have to go even there. We have 0 to 3 years percentage of people who are a little less than what the industry could actually possibly take. There are on-site offshore issues that you could further rationalize. There are G&A expenses that you can rationalize and bring it line. All these expenses can be put forward. Margin could possibly go up, but the important part for us as a company is to drive growth. And that's where I'm saying we have opportunities that we will fund and funnel into business investments, both in sales and marketing, in terms of the M&A as well as the capabilities upstream with the customers with that money.
Mr. Naik, you spoke about the fact that there's a lot of domain knowledge which is existing in the L&T group, and L&T Infotech has that domain knowledge to do it, and you are also undertaking the digitization of the L&T group there. What kind of opportunities it give to L&T Infotech, because today the revenues are what, 2% 2% of your revenues comes from L&T. So are we going to see a bump up on those revenues given the fact that
I won't give too much importance as much as the experience that rubs off while implementing various digital solutions within the domains of L&T Group. 2.5% can become 4%, let's say, because of the participation of the L&T Infotech in solution providing between physical and digital integration and the turnkey that project that we bid. But the amount of experience they will get, nobody else can get, because in their backyard, they don't have 82 domains, right? That is really the knowledge they will carry to the market to improve their positioning in a premium category of the L&T with an L&T domain experience, a premium company in the IT domain.
how big data and analytics be for L&T Infotech in the next 5 years?
It is one of the fastest growing service line for us. So we grew last year at 30+%. With the amount of data that is being spit out all over the place with the Internet of Things, with sensors, beacons, Internet of Things and whatever else that is available is tremendous. The ability for us to use that data, for example, in the manufacturing world to bring industrial outcomes to the customer is what we can do much more differently than anybody else on planet Earth. Because we understand what the physical, actually our compressor is spitting out, or a pipeline where the crude is flowing, what the flow should be, etc. So using that data, we can actually make and bring a value to the customer. So we solve problem not only at IT, but IT plus OT, which is operational technologies. Right? Very few IT services company have that capability, which is very differentiated for us.
I'm running out of time, so Sanjay, before I come to the last question to Mr. Naik, to you. Your vertical exposure of BFSI is around over 40%, and analysts believe that that's one of the segments which is showing a so slow growth for all IT companies. How do you see that segment going forward? And one of the fastest growing segment, which is healthcare domain, you are hardly present in that domain. So how do you address both the challenges?
So let's take a look at BFSI. I think the sector where people are saying there is a little bit of a stress is the banking sector, so the BFS sector. So let's take out 20% of our insurance revenues from there, because that sector is growing very well. Absolutely, there's no issue. For BFS as well, if you look at our numbers for the last 3 years, BFS has actually driven the growth. Now, we are not a large company where we have all the service lines, or we have all the service lines. We don't serve all the customers and all the functions. So the most important thing for us is to focus. And we have focused ourselves in capital markets, investment bank, wealth and asset management. And most importantly, we are focused in finance, risk and compliance. Now, banks are putting a lot of burden on, the regulators are putting a lot of burden on the banks today. We are at a sweet spot whereby, by being in finance, risk and compliance, we are seeing a huge amount of pipeline coming our way. We worked with one of the leading banks which has cleared the CCAR capital adequacy test in the US, or one of the only few banks which has cleared it. The kind of capabilities that we can bring to the banking segment is tremendous on top of that. Second area, which is a great opportunity, is the entire robotics process automation and business process automation. Again, I don't have the baggage of a BPO service line where I have to worry about what happens to my 1,000 people who are doing mortgages or auto loan. Alright, so we have used the best of OCR technology, best of Automate First, Blue Prism, best tools available both in the market as well as the tools and automation that we have built ourselves to bring serious disruption in this market and reduce significant costs for the banks. So we see these two service lines itself creating a good amount of impetus and momentum for us.
What about healthcare?
See, we again as a company, we have to focus on something. So there are enough, as I said, we have 250 customers, we are in retail, we are in CPG, we are in high tech, we are in banking, insurance. So all in good time, we focus, we grow on 250 customers that we have today, and I am sure we will reach all the areas. We are not going to leave any sector where customers are spending money.
But I think to add to what he said, our size of company, we cannot spread out all our resources on, let's say, multiple different domain industries. And therefore, we are in 6 sectors, which is far more than enough, considering that it is a 900 million. Had we not transferred the PES, the Product Engineering Group, from Infotech to engineering company, because it's an engineering piece which was lying in Infotech. This company is already 975 million. 3 years back we transferred. So some of your growth numbers and all that also must take into account the restructuring which has taken place within two companies.
Mr. Naik, the entire reason why I'm asking that question is that it's also leading to client concentration risk as well. Because if you're going to be in heavily dependent on FSI, then there will be client concentration risk, and anything happens to any particular client, the risk will automatically come on the company. So that's the reason I'm asking, is there a diversification policy which you have? You're looking at new sector like healthcare, which is the fastest growing domain for many companies now.
Yeah, but it may be, but the point is those companies are very huge, and therefore they have resources to tackle 10, 12 sectors. Or there are companies which are small and only concentrating on one or two. One happens to be medical, the healthcare. But we are already in fairly widespread present in the industry, like banking, like finance, high tech, engineering, manufacturing, oil and gas, and so on. And I think they provide enough opportunity for growth.
So, Naik, finally, the IPO is opening and you are giving a 10 rupee discount to the retail investors. Do you expect a lot of retail investors to subscribe to IPO, or they will just subscribe to make that initial gains on the listing day?
Well, from what reports I'm hearing and what the analysts are talking about, and lots of broker communities are talking, I'm hearing that the issue is going to be well received.
Mr. Naik and Mr. Jalona, thank you very much for joining us on Bloomberg 20.
Thank you.